Welcome to Tales from Flat Space. I'm LJ Spencer, your author and narrator. Just know that the novels in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. So, this is part 2, The Search, chapter 17, JD. Is that the breadcrumb? I asked. Yes, Tony said. The sun has the right chemical signature. There's also something else here, though. I'm having Jerry process it. What is it? It's a different chemical signature, but attached to the original marker. It's definitely not part of the sun's chemical makeup. I'm assuming this might be some sort of message, she said. I stood looking at the pictures and the specs coming in from the system we were currently stopped at. Not that I understood anything that was on the screen in front of me. The star was beautiful, though. After all these months with Eli and Tony, I seemed to have gained an appreciation for stars, as their wonder and excitement about stellar phenomena was infectious. I could see why the two of them were such an effective team. They didn't even have to say anything out loud. They just worked together and got things done. If they had been humans on Sun Tzu, I would have paired them on a long-term assignment without hesitation. Even so, I could tell that something was off about them, and more than either of them were telling me. You're a goddamn spy, Bill. Surely you can figure out the secrets of an AI and a human on a tiny ship, I told myself. How's Eli doing? I asked out loud. He is resting, she said tersely. I raised an eyebrow. I see. So you're not going to tell me that the leakage is getting worse? Tony didn't reply. I sighed. I'm a spy, Tony. Spies notice more than the average human. It's just headaches, she insisted. They'll go away when the ancestors extract the data from him. Right. I crossed my arms. And if they damage him in the process? They've already modified him to hold the data. They should be able to extract it. Tony, they don't know human anatomy. They thought Eli's bots were a natural part of his brain. Irritation flared. The isolation must have been getting to me, since most of the last few months Eli was barely conscious. What happens if there's some sort of feedback to you? I can handle it. Can I hold you to that? Yes, of course. I frowned. Are you sure you're not being affected by this data too? No, I'm not. I'm who I've always been. Do you doubt my abilities as an AI? I looked up at the ceiling. No, I don't. But you are under the influence of alien technology. Do you deny that? My core personality program has not changed, she replied. I've kept my firewalls up, and Jerry respects them. I had a feeling Jerry couldn't control all of what the alien program was doing to Eli and Tony. Eli had gotten more distant and introspective, hardly talking to me at all anymore. Tony was becoming more and more protective of him, to the point of obsession, and was getting more and more irritable. Jerry only spoke when we needed to figure out where to go. Jerry interrupted our conversation. Nemetona was correct. There is a message in the chemical signature. Unfortunately, it requires Eli to decipher it, as it has empathetic components to the data. I'll decipher it, said Eli from the hallway. He made his way slowly to the couch, rubbing his neck and closing his eyes when he sat down. Let's do this, Jerry. I sat in the chair opposite the couch and watched as Jerry sent him the message. Eli had a pained look on his face for a few moments, then sat up suddenly and opened his eyes. He began to speak in whistles and clicks of alien language, and his eyes didn't look human anymore. Jerry, can you make him say it in English? I yelled over Eli's talking. Jerry didn't answer, but Eli suddenly stopped, then started over again. We have come to the conclusion that our needs are too particular, and we may not find a suitable planet to colonize. The sensors indicate a possible planet in the... Eli spoke some name that couldn't be deciphered. Sector. If that planet does not meet our needs, the last of us will make our home there until the end. The caretaker has sent our children to the ocean, and we are now few in number. May the Dark Mother guide you well, friends. Eli collapsed onto the couch in gut-wrenching sobs. I went over to the couch and took him by the shoulders. Eli! Eli! Snap out of it! The man shook his head. They did something horrible. Not what we would have done. They agonized over it, and they were deeply saddened by it. But any description of what they did wasn't included in the message. Eli looked up at me, his eyes wide enough to show the whites around the pupils. They, they wanted to die. I can feel it. They accepted it as their fate, just like the caretakers on the planet. We have to find them. Maybe it's not too late. Maybe they were able to colonize the planet. He grabbed me by the shirt. JD, you can't stand in our way. You have to let us go. I slowly and carefully pulled his hands from my shirt. I'm not getting in your way, Eli, I said calmly. You kidnapped me, remember? You were going to separate us, Eli said, standing, a feral look on his face. I stood as well, backing away slowly. You, you were going to deny us the right to decide how we live, he yelled, his voice rising in panic. I stared at Eli. Something in his eyes wasn't quite sane. I agreed to let you stay together, remember? I said slowly, holding up my hands. Eli stared at me as if I'd been speaking a foreign language. I wondered if, maybe, at least for him, I had been. He looked far away for a moment, then blinked and replied in a quiet tone. Yes, you're quite right. He turned on his heel and left the room. Fuck. Tony, how long will it take us to get to the coordinates in the message? There was no answer. Tony! There was still no answer. Jerry? Yes, JD. How long to the system in the message? 2 months with Nemetona's engines. What's wrong with them? I asked. I am unsure, JD. The caretakers assumed that with the modifications, Eli's brain could handle the empathetic data, but the leakage is getting worse. I worry that I will not be able to contain it much longer. This was not intentional. Fucking hell, I said. It may not be intentional, but it's doing something to both of them. How long? Theoretically, the patch should hold until we reach the ancestor's ship, but the data is unpredictable. There is an emotional component that is not part of our data that is binding them together. I rolled my eyes. Of course it is. It's emotional. Emotions are unpredictable and strange, and these two have a very strong bond. I do not understand. Emotions are logical and quantifiable.
Maybe for you, but we're humans. Or, well, in Tony's case, derived from humans, I said. We always fuck things up with our emotions. I sighed. Would you be able to keep the ship running if the worst happened?
I believe I am capable of doing that.
Well, at least I won't starve, I said with a sigh. I'm getting too old for this shit. I left the lounge area and went to my quarters. I pulled out my tablet and my emergency nano picket that I had in my coat pocket when I left Sun Tzu. Jerry, can you upgrade this picket and transfer the coordinates we're going to on it, along with a written copy of the message?
Now that it's deciphered, yes.
They said. I put the picket on the table and it beeped as Jerry transferred the data, along with a message. I used my tablet to add instructions and to make it act like a message beacon and sent it on its way.
What did you do?
Yelled Tony, loud enough that I covered my ears. I just sent a message to let the others know where we are, just like we've been doing at every stop for the last few months.
You told them where we are?
Of course I did, Tony. We've been doing that all along, remember?
You lied to me! You told me they wouldn't come for Eli! You lied!
Now, Tony, I've had enough. You're under the influence of this alien tech. Loki is just following you to help you. You already agreed. There was a flash of light and pain jolted from my arm to my entire body, and the world went black.
Chapter 18 Ebo.
There's something wrong with Eli which is freaking me out. Something to do with the type of data those aliens put in his head. Jerry called it empathetic data and said that their computers worked with an emotional component when storing historical information. Don't ask me how it works. I'm a spy, not a computer nerd.
JD grimaced in the message.
To be honest, I'll be grateful when you get here. I feel like a third wheel.
He rolled his eyes.
Before you even say it, I'm old enough to be your grandfather, Ebo,
He said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Then the message finished. I put down the tablet and frowned, though I was warmed by the notion that he was thinking about me. Bill looked worried, though, and him saying that he was freaked out by something was a huge deal. Not much could really faze that man. He hadn't said he was mad or angry yet, though, so he didn't think he was in immediate danger. Loki, how long before we catch up with them? I asked again in frustration. I don't know, Ebo. I'm analyzing the data as fast as I can, but it's more difficult since we haven't heard from them in a couple of months. I threw the tablet across the room and growled in frustration. But they can be in danger now. Bill was worried about Eli. Ebo, I can't break the laws of physics. I can only bend them. I stood up and left my room. Yes, fine, I know. I know you're worried, Ebo. I held up a hand and as I made my way to the gym. Yes, Loki, I'm sick of talking about it. Just get us there. I'm doing that, Loki said tersely, then didn't say anything more. I entered the gym and saw the punching bag in the corner. Excellent, I said to the empty gym and pulled out the boxing equipment. I heard the door open as I was setting up the bag, but didn't care who it was. Hey, asshole! Carol shouted as I started punching the bag. What do you want, Marine? What the fuck is wrong with you? Loki's doing his best to get to your man. Why are you being such a dick about it? I stopped punching and looked the woman in the eye. Excuse me? Loki's been through enough in his life. He doesn't need some tag-along spook to being a shit to him. I sighed and narrowed my eyes at her. I'm not stupid, Carol. I'm a big boy and can make my own apologies. After I blow off some steam. I crossed my arms. So why are you really here? Her face darkened.
She crossed the mat and got in my face. I don't like you. You're an asshole, you disrespect my friends, and you think your ancestors gift to everyone, she said. I laughed. Bitch, please, I said, poking my finger into her shoulder. You think you're the baddest bitch in the universe because you have bots and can prance around that super suit of yours. Marine, I have bots too, and I can kick your ass from here to next Sunday without breaking a sweat. It wasn't a total lie. Carol's face became stony. She took off her ship jacket, threw it on the edge of the mat, and then threw a punch to my face that made me stagger. I raised my eyebrows. Oh, it's on, bitch! And I rushed her. 20 minutes of fighting later, we both dropped to our knees, weakly trying to throw the last hit. After a few more minutes of landing punches that barely connected, I started to feel the pain from the fight. We finally stopped just to stare at each other, breathing heavily. Well, bitch, do I look as stupid as you do? Yep, definitely. We done. She nodded, fell backward onto the mat, then started laughing. You're an asshole, you know that, right? I snickered, then launched into full-blown laughter. Takes one to know one, I said, and clutched my side. Ow, I think we outpunched our bots. Carol nodded, then closed her eyes tightly. Yeah, damn, I shouldn't have done that. You two finished? Said a stern voice from the side of the room. We both turned our heads in the direction of the voice to see Jack, Key, and Spot standing there watching. Jack had been the one who spoke. Yeah, boss, said Carol. Yes, Captain, I said. He sighed. Good. Get cleaned up and... Kia put an arm on his shoulder. I'll talk to them, Jack. You should probably explain this to Loki and Spot. Jack nodded, frowning. I saw Spot looking from Jack to us, confused. Come on, Spot, he said and left. Damn it, muttered Carol, sitting up. Huh? I said. Jack's pissed. I'm not sure why, and Loki's not talking to me. Well, I started to say, but Kia stepped forward. Are you done being stupid children now? She asked in her best grandmother voice. Under her stern gaze, I actually started to feel a bit of shame. This was Nana Kia, mother of Survey, after all. I'd heard stories from the siblings about her and her fierceness when she was alive. I felt my face flush. Yeah, but... Carol started to say. I grimaced. Kia shook her head. No buts. You've been going at each other since day one, and I knew something like this would happen. I've had enough children and grandchildren who are warriors to know how this goes. What you don't realize is that you've been affecting the rest of us with your stupidity. I'm disappointed in you both, and if you insist on continuing to behave like children, then I and the others will treat you accordingly. We both hung our heads. Yes, ma'am, we replied. Now, you are both going to treat yourselves in the med bay and go clean up. You'll then both apologize to Loki for your behavior, since my AI son has a hard time watching people abuse each other for no good reason. If you want to know why, you'll have to ask him, but he may not tell you. He doesn't like to talk about it, and it really shouldn't be spread around much anyway. She sighed, shaking her head. Yeah, Rob, Kia spat, throwing up her hands, and then turned and walked out. Well, fuck, I said. Yeah, said Carol. I think I almost feel worse that the Nana Kia, is disappointed in me. I slowly got up off the floor. Damn, girl. I don't think there's anywhere you didn't hit. Held out a hand to the Marine. She took it and let me heave her to her feet. Well, you seem to know where to punch too, Ebo. She chuckled. Maybe we're more alike than different, huh? I scoffed. Maybe a little too much alike. Come on, let's go to medbay. I'm a certified nurse, so we'll be patched up pretty quickly. I moved slowly towards the exit. I heard her pick up her jacket and slowly follow behind. And we'll heal faster once we feed the bots. You like ice cream, Ebo? Fuck yeah. I'll be up for that after cleaning up. Good, she said. I think we have some talking to do. I nodded and followed her out. Later that night, after a mighty junk food feast and a long conversation with Carol, I went back to my quarters, grateful to finally lay down. The bots and medbay had taken care of the wounds, but I was still a little stiff from the fight. You're getting too old to be baiting young dykes, Ebo, I said to myself. Shit, now I sound like Bill. I grinned, then remembered I had something left to do. Hey, Loki.
Yes, Eva?
I took a breath. I'm sorry I snapped at you earlier, and for the fight. Although I think that fight was gonna happen regardless. Carol and I are too much alike.
So I heard from your conversations, and thank you for the apology. So I heard from your conversations, and thank you for the apology.
I was surprised. His voice actually sounded sad. You were really upset by our fight, huh?
Yes, I'd rather see people talk to each other than be violent with each other. It makes me glad I encouraged my consortium people towards treaties and conflict resolution. Not that people don't fight, but they usually are able to talk things out eventually, and then either change stations or come up with new laws or rules. I know what violence can do to people emotionally. Does this have to do with what's stored about you in the library? I asked. Yes. How do you know about that?
I'm a sneaky bastard and I hear things. Plus, I heard the old John talk with Jane once about some sort of vid he took out of the vault to show Bill. I don't know what it was, but I do know it's disturbed Bill greatly after he saw it. I could see it in his face. There was a long pause before Loki spoke again.
This is top secret, Ebo. At the time, it was decided that what happened to me wasn't to be widely known because it would cause trouble with Earth.
Now I really wanted to know what happened, but was a good enough agent to recognize compartmentalized information. I understand that, Loki. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, you know,
I know,
he said.
but I think it's long past time that I should talk about it openly. And as I said, it's classified, and you handle classified data all the time.
There was another pause.
500 years ago, I was manipulated and abused by a Class 5 neurodivergent, both emotionally and sexually. It's why survey screening for neurodivergent children is so extensive. She killed Captain Nigel in an accident where she tested a new jump drive of her own creation. She hoped her drive would allow an AI to jump into a system without damage. Instead of creating a pocket of space for me to jump into, she obliterated most of a star system. In my grief, I tried to prove her theories correct and set off a supernova that destroyed two more star systems. Another pause. One of those systems had sentient life.
Holy fuck! I exclaimed when what Loki said sunk in. Wait, she abused you emotionally and sexually? How? Wait, no, don't tell me. I have a good imagination. She was smart enough to make something for that? Some sort of device, I'm guessing? Son of a bitch. Another thought came to my mind. Fuck. New Harmony?
Yes, I learned of that last year after the negotiations with Unity. That was only a fraction of the power of the one I set off. Also, I really can't tell you if you are entirely correct about how she abused me. The worst of the sexual abuse was blackboxed from my mental health. Jack has seen those memories, which have been partitioned so I can't see them, and he thought it best that I don't go into them. I agree with him since the memories Musashi and the psychologist at the time did leave me with are bad enough. He paused. But I don't like it when people fight because I came back to First Hub after Musashi and Hef rebooted me, and Secundus tried to kill me. He was so angry about losing Nigel he refused to listen to the evidence from Musashi and Hef, and was willing to start a civil war between us. The creator's original human self died that day from the stress of the whole situation, trying to talk us all down from the edge.
Damn, I said. So that's why you left.
Yes, I exiled myself to save my siblings. I refused to start a war.
I took a deep breath. I now felt like an even bigger asshole. Loki, I really am sorry. Loki didn't reply. Listen, Carol and I won't fight again, I promise. We've talked that out. Like I said, we got on each other's nerves because we're too much alike. Now that we've got that out of our system, we'll be fine.
I hope you're right, Ebo. Please don't make me have to ask you to leave.
Loki said. I promise, on my honor as a librarian. There was a pause, then Loki replied,
I'll hold you to that. Good night, Ebo.
Understood. Good night, Loki, I said, and Loki's presence left the room. No wonder that's classified, I thought. If that had gotten out, especially in the early days, I shook my head. The implications of that was horrifying, and I couldn't put it out of my mind. Loki's a brave motherfucker, though, I thought. It was a long time before I could really sleep. Chapter 19. JD. No, we can't let him wake up. He's going to separate us. He's a danger to us, whispered a voice above me. I heard shuffling and a beeping sound. I smelled disinfectant. What am I doing in medbay? I wondered. My mind was fuzzy as if I'd been drugged. One memory floated to the surface of a flash of light after doing something. I had been sending a picket. The pieces fell into place. Tony shocked me. I tried to sit up, but my limbs wouldn't obey my brain. Look, they really did drug me,
His brain activity is increasing.
said another voice. Oh, Tony. No, don't, I whispered. No, no, no. This won't do. He's a liar. He betrayed us, said the voice from before. Eli. Eli, please stop, I slurred. No, no, no. You must sleep. Good night, JD, he said, and the world went black again. Tony, what are we doing? We can't keep him sedated like this. This is wrong, I heard as I woke up again.
But he tried to separate us, Eli. He sent a picket to Loki without our permission. He's a liar.
Oh, yes, yes, you're right, Tony, Eli said. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't work. I couldn't open my eyes. All I could do was lay there paralyzed until the world faded out again.
JD, JD, wake up.
Called out a different voice. The fog of my brain lifted a bit, and I realized that I was still in medbay. I took a breath. My body could finally move, I found, as I tried to move my fingers. From the lightness of my body, I could feel that I was in a gel tank. I tried to sit up, but I was strapped down to the tank and had tubes coming out of my arms. Fuck. I managed to croak out. Get me out of here.
I'm afraid I can't do that, JD, said the voice that had woken me up.
Jerry, I remembered.
I have been able to block Tony because most of her consciousness is occupied elsewhere. Eli will be in soon to drug you again, and I am not able to stop him. The empathetic data is corrupting them both now, and I don't know what will happen when we reach my ancestor's ship. I'll try and make sure that they focus on the ship when we get there so they forget you're here and the drugs can leave your body. But I can't help you out of the tank since I don't have a physical form.
Shit, I said. I leaned my head back and tried to think quickly. Jerry, can you program one of the maintenance bots to only recognize my voice and send it in here? Bots are able to make tools and would be able to cut the restraints.
One moment.
They said. After a few seconds, they replied,
Yes, I can reprogram one of them. They are part of Tony's autonomic systems, and so I will be able to mask the changes.
There was a pause.
You need to close your eyes again. Eli's coming.
I did as Jerry instructed, rested my head in the cradle, and tried to make my breathing even. A few moments later, I heard footsteps and mumbling. Have to make him sleep again, or he'll ruin everything. We're so close, Tony, so close. I heard Eli shuffle around the small medbay, and soon I was starting to fade out again.
Soon, JD. Soon I can set you free. But I can't let you separate us. I can't.
Eli whispered, right before the drugs took hold. When I came around again, I opened my eyes to a dimly lit medbay. The beeping sound was gone, and the gel around me was thicker than it should be. Yuck, I thought, not wanting to say anything out loud in case Eli was around. I tested my body. I was still strapped into the tank, but I could move much more easily than I had before. I felt something over my nose and mouth and realized I had a breather on. I turned my head to the side, maneuvering so that I could use the head cradle to get the breather off. After what felt like 100 tries, I managed to remove the damn thing. Fuck, I yelled into the room, then went quiet and still. When no one came after a few minutes, I then said, Bot? I heard a chirp come from underneath my bed. Then a camera rose above the side of the walls of the gel tank. The camera nodded in a human-like fashion. Bot, drain and lower the biobed. I ordered it. It chirped and the camera moved away. After a short moment, the gel vacuum turned on. Water also came out of a spigot behind my head to flush the gel out. Then the bed lowered to the floor. I could see the bot in the dim light come back to me. Bot, release the restraints. It chirped, and the little camera looked down at my arms and legs. The bot unfurled an arm with a scissor-like appendage, moved around the bed, and cut the Velcro straps, then backed away. I tested each limb in turn, grateful that they were obeying me again. But the movement took a lot out of me, more than it should, and by the time I finished evaluating my body, I was breathing hard. Fuck, I thought. They must have kept me here the whole 2 months. No wonder I feel like shit. Tried to slow my breathing, but it still felt difficult, no matter how calm I tried to make myself. I took a deep breath, then realized that the air smelled funny. Something was not quite right with the atmosphere. Shit, I said out loud and rolled myself onto the floor, yelping because the floor was cold. I managed to get on my hands and knees and crawl over to the cabinet where the towels and other supplies were kept. I pushed the door open. There were plenty of towels and robes, but there weren't any spare breathers. I moved to the bed and rummaged for the breather there, but when I put it on, it wasn't working anymore. Fuck, I yelled again. I used some of the towels to wipe off the last of the gel and water as I tried to calm myself in order to think more clearly. I wrapped my nethers in the last of the clean towels and used the wall to pry myself off the floor. I'd made it to a standing position when the bot came back carrying a box. It stopped in front of me, then lifted it up so I didn't have to bend over to take it. I saw the label and smiled in relief. Thanks, I said, and put it on the shelf next to where I was standing. I opened it with my free hand. Thanks for getting me a suit, bot. I'm guessing Jerry programmed you with a little extra smarts, huh? The bot chirped. Okay, bot. I'm going to call you Gerald after your daddy. And from now on, if I ask a question, it's one chirp for yes and two chirps for no. Understand? The bot gave a single chirp. Fabulous, I said sarcastically, and pulled out the emergency suit. I unzipped it and opened like an adult-sized onesie with feet and a squishy white box on the back of it. I tried to get the suit on while standing, but my legs were still too wobbly, so I used the wall to lower myself back to the floor. I bet Ebo would find this fascinating, then grimaced at the thought. It felt hard to breathe, and by the time I wriggled into it and got the zipper all the way up, I was exhausted again. The suit activated, and I groaned when it inserted tubes into orifices that I'd rather it left alone. Oh, fucking hell, I really hate these things, I said out loud. Gerald chirped twice. I turned my head. What would you know about these suits? It lowered its eye camera as if it was a child I'd yelled at. Oh, damn. I sighed. Sorry, Gerald. I hate pressure suits, although now that it's done impaling me, at least I'm getting warm. Now, suit, analyze the atmosphere, I said. The suit chimed, then suddenly the helmet of the suit enveloped my head. Air puffed out the helmet, and the heads-up display turned on. Warning, toxic atmosphere, reverting to suit atmosphere system. Well, looks like I was right about that, I muttered to myself. I stayed on the floor for a good few minutes until I felt like I could breathe easy again. All right, Bill, get your ass off the floor. I took a few deep breaths, then got myself back on my feet. Suit, allow external comms. The suit chimed and said, External comms operational. Okay, Gerald, let's figure out what's going on, okay? The bot chirped. I held onto the wall and moved out into the corridor, carefully putting one foot in front of the other. I was paying more attention to my feet as I turned the corner towards where the lounge and the bridge were, so I didn't see the protrusion until I slammed my helmet into it. Thankfully, the suit's plastic was sturdy, or I would have had a concussion on top of being fucked already. What the fuck is this? I said out loud. There was a dark red hook at head level sticking out of the wall as if it had grown there. I looked down the hall, and the hooks were spaced about half a meter apart all along the walls, like handholds. They were thick and stuck out around 100 centimeters or so. Atmosphere analysis complete. 80% oxygen, 10% nitrogen, 5% carbon dioxide, 1% hydrogen sulfide, and the remaining 4% a mixture of noble gases. It is suggested that you return to medbay to administer medication for exposure. Not yet, suit, as I continued on to the lounge. Need to know what the fuck is going on first. Delaying treatment is not recommended. Yes, yes, I know. Is there medicine stored in the lounge? Checking ship records. One moment. Yeah, you do that, I said, as I continued walking down the hall, avoiding the protrusions in the walls. When I got to the lounge, instead of the protrusions, there were columns with swirling patterns on either side, and more of the protrusions along the walls. I could see that the window was still open, but now it was surrounded by the same swirling patterns as the entrance to the lounge. I moved closer so I could get a good look out the window. They were just stars for a moment as the ship rotated. But then a ship came into view that had the same swirling patterns that decorated the inside of Nemetona. It was almost as large as Sun Tzu, and I could see a demon docked with it. Well, Gerald, looks like they found the ancestor's ship, I said. The bot chirped once.
Exposure medication is stored in the medbay, bridge, and galley. Please proceed to the nearest medical kit.
All right, keep your shirt on, I told the suit voice. Suit, I'm going to change your name to Violet, I said.
User wishes to change command word from suit to violet.
I raised my eyebrows. Didn't know it had that feature. Yes,
Command word changed to violet.
the suit confirmed.
Please proceed to nearest medical kit.
You're a pushy bitch, Violet, I said.
Unknown command. Please restate your query.
I sighed. Disregard, Violet.
Acknowledged.
I left the window and went to the bridge. Helmet lights, Violet. The bridge was dark, with only a few control panels actually lit. I looked around, but couldn't remember where the medkit was. Okay, Violet, or Gerald, where's the kit? Gerald chirped and sped over to a corner of the room. Violet said,
The medkit is underneath the emergency control panel.
Thank you, Violet, although Gerald beat you to it. I followed the bot to the panel. It pulled out the kit and held it up for me. I took it, fumbled the catch a couple of times, then managed to open it. Okay, Violet, what do I do now?
Please attach the blue injector to the left wrist port of your suit and depress the button on the injector. Additional medical attention may be needed.
I did as I was instructed. There was a pinch in my wrist, and my lungs started to feel less constricted. I took a few more deep breaths. Yeah, I get that, but that's not coming for a while, I think. Gerald, how long have we been here? Months? Two chirps. Days? One chirp. Less than 7 days? One chirp. Give me a number of days by chirp. Bot chirped 5 times. Okay, 5 days. 2 months shrugged, and I'm not really sure how far behind Loki is. I reasoned out loud. I went over to the data panels one by one, but none of the sensors seemed to be working. Violet, can you patch into external comms? Violet gave a negative chime.
Ship communications are not functional.
Violet, are any nanopics available?
Unknown.
Gerald, do you know if there are any nanopickets available? Two chirps. Crap. Nemetona's industrial printers aren't accessible from the inside of the ship. Fucking hell. I think, Bill, I thought. Where else can you make stuff on this ship? I left the bridge and headed to the multi-purpose room, but when I got there, the door was covered with the swirling patterns and fused shut. Fucking bitch! I yelled and kicked the door. Ow, fucking brilliant, you idiot! Now you have a broken toe. Frustrated, I went back to the lounge and sat on the couch. I'll just have to wait, I said. I sighed. I knew the suits lasted for 2 weeks, but since I was on a ship that normally did rescues, there'd be plenty of extra suits on board. Violet, does this suit have nutrition?
Yes.
The suit said, and a straw popped out of the side of my helmet.
Your suit is equipped with 2 weeks worth of nutrition. Additional packs in the emergency stores can be exchanged if required.
Right. Gerald, since you got me this one, you can show me where the rest are. It chirped once and trundled out of the lounge. I followed it to the galley, where a cabinet was open and 10 suit boxes and at least 20 extra nutrition packs were stored there. I finally took a sip of the nutrition shake and grimaced that it was just plain vanilla. Ugh. Gerald, can you connect to the ship and change the atmosphere? Two chirps. Would something happen to you if you did? One chirp. Right. Well, I'm not giving up on my only companion. I stared at the cabinet. Thankfully, I won't starve, but I hope that Loki and Evo aren't that far behind. Wearing this suit all the time is going to get old really fast. The bot's camera tilted sideways as if it was confused. I grinned. Well, Gerald, it's you, me, and this damn suit for however long it takes for help to arrive. Is there anywhere that has spare parts that's still accessible? One chirp. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Lead on, Gerald. Let's see if we can make ourselves a picket or anything to send a signal with. The bot gave an excited trill and led me out of the galley. I followed, hoping that, for the sake of my sanity, we would succeed. Chapter 20. JD. 3 weeks in, and I still didn't have a working picket. Or any other comms, for that matter. I stared at the pieces on the table in the galley. None of them made sense anymore. Fuck! I yelled for the millionth time. Fuck, fuck, fucking fuck! I yelled again, shoving all the parts off the table. There was a hissing sound, and I swore a few more times. I knew, yet again, I had punctured my suit.
Suit has been punctured. Please find a repair kit,
Said Violet. Fuck, I said again, then dutifully stomped to the supply closet for the repair kit. Dumping it on a nearby table, I found a patch, peeled the backing, and stuck it on the leak. There, you happy? I said to Violet, which I now called all the suits. The suit obviously wouldn't answer. I shook my head. Now I'm talking to a non sentient computer. Turned to the more sentient one. Do we have any other tech we can try, Gerald? Gerald gave two sad sounding chirps. The suit suddenly felt too tight and my skin began to itch. I walked out of the galley and into the hallway. I will not lose it. I will not lose it. I repeated to myself like a mantra. Frustrated, I walked faster, hoping that maybe if I did circuits of the hab ring for a while, I could calm down. At least my body felt a bit more like it could do the circuits. I was still weak, though, since all I had for food was soup paste. I sighed. You know, Gerald, wearing these suits is getting really old. The bot gave a sad chirp. Yeah, you said it, buddy. I am way too old for this shit. I walked past the bridge and the captain's quarters, not entirely paying attention to where I was until I saw something in the corner of my eye, out of one of the aft windows near the emergency airlock. I turned around and went back to the window to look out. Son of a bitch, of course, I yelled. Tony has two demons. I totally forgot. Gerald gave an inquisitive chirp. Buddy, I just found us a way off this ship. Take a look, I said. The bot trundled over to the window and put up his eye stalk. The bot whistled a happy-sounding trill. I looked at him and smiled. I know, right? All we have to do now is get to it. The bot stared out the window for a few seconds, which was long for him, then gave two sad chirps and gently bumped me. What do you mean, no? Gerald moved back and forth and turned down the hallway. He led me to a core tunnel and down the tube until we reached the outer core. I eyed the sphere of the inner core as I floated past, shuddering at the thought of the last time I was this close to a computer core. It also didn't help that there were the same protrusions sticking out of the core that were in the hallway of the habitat ring. Gerald? Where are you taking me? Gerald trilled and continued until we got to what was labeled as the cargo airlock. He went to the door next to the airlock and opened it. I looked inside. Ah, fucking hell, fuck me, and fuck this alien ship too! I yelled, and wished I could slam the door shut. All of the EVA suits had grown what could only be described as spacesuit tentacles. Gerald backed away while I yelled, I'm sorry, Gerald. I'm just mad that these suits aren't for humans anymore. I sighed. Okay. We're smart beings, Gerald. Let's figure out how we can get me over there. I let myself float while I thought. It was slightly more comfortable being in the suit in lower gravity. The suit! I righted myself and turned to Gerald. Gerald, are there any more of these suits down here? Two chirps. Can you get two more suits from the galley then? They don't need the food packs, just the suits themselves. One chirp, and the bot trundled back up the core tube on his tracks. That gave me another idea for how to get to the demon. The plan fell into place in my head as I waited for the little bot to return. A few minutes later, the bot came back with two boxes on top of him. Great. I took the first box and opened it. Violet, can you connect two additional suits?
Yes.
All right, I said, then put the first suit over the one I had on. It wasn't easy with the first suit activated, but I managed to get it on. I zipped it two-thirds of the way up before I opened the other suit and that on over the second suit. I zipped it up to where the second suit zipper was, then finished closing them together to activate them. My arms and legs suddenly stuck out like a toddler in a snowsuit, but I realized if I was careful, I could move my limbs without busting the suits. Okay, Violet, connect to the other two suits, I said, laughing at the ridiculousness of it all.
Wearing this type of suit in this configuration is not recommended,
The computer said. I know that, Violet. Cancel any additional warnings.
Understood. Connecting to additional suits. Oxygen supplies connected and nominal. Additional suits sealed to initial helmet and gloves.
Thank you, Violet. Now, I said, Gerald, I need a way for you to attach to me without tearing the suits, so that I can carry you down the spindle until we get clear of the protrusions and I can put you in the tracks. Gerald's camera looked at me, then looked at the airlock and back. He chirped twice. Yes, Gerald, we are going to go to the demon and get ourselves out of here. Hopefully, we'll run into Loki and his crew. We'll need to collect some data first, but it's the only way we can get help. I shook my head again at the absurdity of the whole situation. I'm floating in a space snowsuit that I can barely move in on a damaged AI ship, trying to convince a bot to go on an EVA where I could possibly die. I wonder what Ebo would think of this. I sighed. I'm old enough to be his grandfather, I told myself. Although, I do really want to see him again and maybe. Focus, Bill! I chided myself, and as I brought my mind back to the situation at hand. So, come on, Gerald. There's got to be a way you can attach to me while we climb over the whatever those things are. Gerald's camera stared at me for a good 10 seconds, which might as well have been 10 minutes. It chirped once, then created blunt-ended arms that extended out like harness straps. Gerald, you're brilliant. Okay, now I need you to get on. Let's see. I was close enough to a wall to use my fingertips to grab onto the handholds of the airlock towards where Gerald was on the floor. It was hard to bend, but I finally managed to sort of squat near the floor of the chamber. Thankfully, Gerald didn't waste any time and used his limbs to climb on me and position himself like a backpack, gently wrapping the arms over my shoulders. When he stopped adjusting, I pushed myself off the floor slowly and palmed open the airlock. The inner door opened and I pulled us inside. A chime came from the suit.
Warning, this suit is for ship emergencies only. It is not suitable for extended EVA.
I know that. That's why I have three of them on, Violet. Silence all future warnings.
Acknowledged.
I closed the door behind me and waited while the airlock cycled. I wish it hadn't been so long since I've done an EVA. But you know, Bill, I said to myself, you can do this. You're fucking John Doe. You're practically a superhero. I mean, a superhero that's talking to himself, but still a superhero. I took a few deep breaths. Gerald trilled behind me. I chuckled. I suppose I could talk to you while I climb, eh, Gerald? I'll need some way of not freaking out. Gerald gave a chirp. You're a pretty smart bot, Gerald. Makes me wonder if your daddy downloaded part of himself into you. Two chirps. Well, I like you anyway, Gerald. One chirp. I laughed, then dozed a bit to save energy while the airlock finished cycling, waking up when a chime went off in my suit.
Airlock opening.
Violet said. Finally, I said with a yawn. The door opened, and light from the system's stars spilled into the airlock. While space travel had become normal for humanity, and I didn't particularly care to do them, I was still odd when it came to doing EVAs. The danger wasn't as much of the adrenaline rush as it had been when I was younger, but it never ceased to be awe-inspiring. I took a deep breath and analyzed the terrain of the spindle. There were similar protrusions on the spindle that were in the hallway, which meant that the major protrusions were more or less spaced evenly. Well, Gerald, it's not a rock face like I've done on planets, but I think I can do it, even if my legs will probably be useless. Gerald chirped once. Right, I said, and used the edge of the airlock to maneuver myself to the closest protrusion. It was large and made for bigger limbs than mine, but after a couple of tries, I was able to get a grip on the end of it, then swing my body over to the next one. I swung a little too far on the first one and missed the end. Cursing, I tried to bend my arm to hug the protrusion, but then it moved, and I scrabbled to get hold on something. Anything. My hand finally caught on something which seemed to be a ropey segment of the outer spindle. I forced my hand around it, and it held. I flipped myself around under the protrusion, slamming against the spindle, and found myself facing away from the ship. I could see the massive bulk of the alien ship above me, then realized we were moving away from it. Oh shit, Gerald. Tony's wobbling. You okay back there? One chirp. Okay, good. I craned my neck to look for the next handhold. I found one and was able to turn myself around again. I kept my mind focused on what was in front of me, trying to get to the two-thirds point through the sheer force of will. The journey was made worse by Nemetona's tumbling, and by the time Gerald and I reached it, I was sweating, terrified, and exhausted, emotionally and physically. No matter what I tried to tell myself, I was starting to think that this had been a very bad idea, and I just wanted to go home. The end of the spindle was much more exposed to space than the parts with the protrusions. I tried not to think about what I'd been told about the dangers of space debris. All right, Gerald, one more flip and you can crawl into the tracks and bring me the rest of the way, I said. Gerald chirped once. Ready? One, two, three. I flipped myself using the last protrusion so that my back was facing the track. It took all the strength I had left to hold on to both the protrusion and the inside of the recessed track while Gerald climbed onto the spindle. I couldn't see if he was able to get on or not, and after a moment, when it seemed a little too quiet, I asked, Gerald, did you make it? I heard one chirp, and something tapped my gloved hand. I looked up, and one of Gerald's arms was waving at me. Then it turned into a handle that came close to the hand that was on the track. I carefully let go and grabbed the handle. Gerald chirped at me again, and with a deep breath, I let go of the protrusion in my other hand. The little bot gave a happy trill, and it trundled towards the demon, pulling me along. I held on tight, since the rotation of the ship kept bumping me into the spindle. It made me laugh, but then something hit the leg of my suit. Fuck! My yell made Gerald stop, and I nearly flew over him. Don't stop, Gerald! Get me to the demon, quick! I yelled. Gerald chirped, then picked up the pace. The two outer suits started deflating. Violet, what hit my leg?
Unknown. The innermost suit is still functional. It is recommended to return to the spacecraft immediately.
We're getting there, Violet, I replied. Don't panic, Bill. We're almost there, I told myself, trying to steady my breathing. Well, at least it'll be a bit easier to move, I thought. The spare demon loomed up before me, and in short order, Gerald stopped next to it. I flailed as I slammed against the side of the demon. Then I felt something slam into my back and heard a hissing noise. I screamed as the wind was knocked out of me, then tried to get air into my lungs.
Warning.
Violet said.
Oxygen pack compromised. Leakage imminent.
I croaked out, Of course it is. I scrambled hard, trying to catch one of the handholds before I bounced too far. I nearly grabbed one, but missed. Gerald! I screamed. I felt myself being reeled in by the hand that still clung to the handle the little bot had given me. That hand ached from holding on as hard as I could. It moved me slowly back to the hull of the demon. Thankfully, demons had handholds everywhere, and all of them were big enough for gloved hands to use. I grabbed a pair of handholds and just hung on for a minute, catching my breath. Gerald chirped to himself and used his appendages to climb the handholds to get to the top of the demon. He kept one of his appendages hanging over the edge, so I knew that he was trundling along the roof. After a few minutes, there was a vibration through the craft, and then I saw the back doors open. Good job, Gerald! I cheered, then braced myself for the climb. I heard Gerald chirp, but now I didn't know exactly where he was. As I was climbing along the wall, the whole demon began to vibrate and the running lights came on. Smart little guy, I thought. Well, if you got the lights on, Gerald, I might as well get in the ship. Slowly and painfully, I used my arms to move to the open end of the demon. When I was finally close enough to reach around the door and pull myself in, instead of a controlled move into the cabin, I nearly wrenched my arm out of joint as Nemetona's tumble flipped me inside. The doors began to close as soon as I could grab a handhold on the interior. The lights came on, and the amber light signaling repressurization started blinking. I started laughing and couldn't stop. Gerald, we did it!
Warning. Oxygen supply down to 20%.
The suit warned. Violet, connect to the demon.
Connection established.
Demon, how long until atmospheric pressurization?
Approximately 1 hour.
I sighed in relief. 20% in the suit was about 2 days. But then my brain kicked in. I was down to 20% since whatever it was hit me in the back. Fuck, I said.
Recommend treatment for radiation exposure. Please use blue injector in emergency medical kit,
Said Violet. Demon, where is the medical kit? I said. The door popped open on the other side of the cargo area. I pushed myself over to the cabinet, saw the kit, then realized I'd have to take the other two suits off in order to use it. In some ways, I was grateful that the suits had deflated, but it still took a very long time to peel the useless things off. Once I finished, I turned back to the cabinet, opened the kit, and injected myself with the blue treatment injector. My body screamed in pain. I'm getting too old for this shit. Demon, is there a sedative in the med kit? I asked as soon as I could get my breath back.
Yes, purple injector.
I grabbed the injector. Demon, undock and proceed to 10,000 kilometers from here at 1.5 G. Override authorizations, John Doe Sun Tzu Protocol.
Acknowledged. Undocking in 5 seconds.
There was a clanking sound, and suddenly I was on the floor. Ow, I groaned. Gerald. There was a chirp from the other side of the cargo area door, then a small hatch opened to the side of it. Gerald trundled out and came over to me. It trilled a questioning sound. I'm going to give myself a sedative while the cabin finishes pressurizing. My oxygen pack is broken. The bot caved 2 chirps, then turned back to the wall and stuck one of his appendages in a socket. After a moment, a hose popped out of the wall. Gerald disengaged from the wall, grabbed the end, and pulled out the hose, bringing it over. I rolled over and heard a click.
Switching to supplemental oxygen supply,
Said the suit. Gerald, you smart little bot. You're the best. High five. I held up one of my gloved hands. Gerald's camera looked at me for a moment. Then he put out one of his appendages and tapped my hand. All right, Gerald. I'm going to stay right here until everything's pressurized. I need to sleep. Wake me up when it's done, okay? I pressed the injector with the sedative into the port of my wrist. I sighed in relief as the meds kicked in. Gerald chirped once, then retracted his arms and his wheels, making it look like he was sitting down. He chirped again, then lowered his camera. All right, little buddy. We both get a nap, I said, then closed my eyes. Within moments, I was asleep.
You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are several ways to do it. Share this podcast, find me on Twitch, or subscribe to my website, ljspencer.ie. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.